It's a story that's come up because apparently there's a video out about famous missing guitars. And since I found it, I found a lot more stuff. But Jim, this is a copy of a 1960 Les Paul Custom. Jimmy Page's first real guitar was this. He saw it in a store and it was just gorgeous. And I'm going to grab it, hold it up a little bit for the camera.
And just Jimmy Page, for those who don't know, is who?
Jimmy Page is the guitar player in Led Zeppelin, which is probably it's Beatles, Stones, Led Zeppelin, as far as the top three largest selling records, bands, biggest fans, richest band in the world. And all three from England, by the way. And they were blues enthusiasts. Then they took American blues and reinterpreted them. And Jimmy Page in 1961 was a young upstart, and he was playing club dates. So he would go into recording studios. He recorded before Led Zeppelin. He would go in and record records. He could read music. And they would, back then, bands would have people come in and write songs for them and play for them. So the Who's first record, Donovan's first record, the song Downtown, that's I forget her name, but and then James Bond movies, the old black and white James Bond movies are, Jimmy Page played on dum da dum 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 dum. And so Jimmy Page was all part of that scene. And then with that, he joined a new band called the Yardbirds. And the Yardbirds is where Jeff Beck got his start, Eric Clapton got his start. They were a cool blues band. Blues in England at the time was like a religion. I mean, they loved American blues, everything about it. They tried to reinterpret it. They tried to copy their heroes. The Americans weren't paying that much attention to the blues, a little bit, but not really. And so they really ignited that. Jimmy played bass at first and then guitar. And then they had a contract to play in Sweden, and he didn't have a band. The band kind of broke up, so he hired the singer, the drummer, and then him and the keyboard player who played bass, John Paul Jones, played the gig in Sweden, and they were like, wow, this is really cool. And that then became Led Zeppelin, and Led Zeppelin just blew up. Those first two records, Jimmy Page played his favorite guitar, which was this. Yeah, so he played his first hit, Whole Lotta Love, on this guitar. And while he played it, he modified it. There's three pickups on here, and there's a switch that picks this pickup to pick a brighter sound. These two pickups, which is kind of a honky, out of phase sound, or flicking here, and it's this pickup. But Jimmy wanted them all at the same time to be able to turn them on and off at his will. So we drilled a hole and drilled a hole. And then he played in Minneapolis in 1970, April of 1970. Okay. Led Zeppelin plays 13 songs. They ended with Whole Lotta Love. He put his guitar down and didn't see it again until 2015 when we returned it. Wow. Now, in 93, Willie's was just opening. And a guy came in that I didn't know then, but I knew him later. I mean, 10 years, 12 years later, I had kind of like, oh, you're, that guy. He came in and he said, I have Jimmy Page's guitar. And I'm like, come on. How do you? Because everybody, let me say, Jimmy Page loved his guitar. I mean, he doesn't own a lot of guitars. He doesn't like to spend money. So he loved that guitar, and he put an ad in Rolling Stone magazine every month with the serial number, please return my guitar. It was there every month. Growing up in the 70s, Rolling Stone is what we all read and what we all got our information on, our new rock stars. And anybody that broke had to break through Rolling Stone, so we all saw it. And when it came in, I'm like, come on, all right. Well, and you know what? It has the right serial number. Now, there's no internet in 93. I couldn't look it up. But I called a guy that had worked for Jimmy Page and said this. They sent another guy in. They looked at it. I believe they didn't see the switch holes. So they came in and said, not ours. Because in the time it had been stolen, it had been around Minneapolis for several decades. It was refinished to hide the fact that it was Jimmy Page's. and remarketed it, sold to a couple of people. But those holes were covered up. So I sold it to my employee, Bleem, who famously played it all around town. And Bleem, who is a rock and roll guitar player, would leave it on bar tops and for gigs. I mean, it was just his guitar. And back then it wasn't worth a ton of money. I think he bought it for like $3,000.
So Jimmy Page's missing guitar is just sitting in bars all over the Twin
Yes.
Cities for years.
Yes. He would play Friday and Saturday night. Friday, he'd just leave the guitar there because it was cold and he didn't want to bring it outside. And so he'd leave it on a bar top or on the stage or in the dressing room and then come back the next day, Saturday, and just pick it up and play it. So this guitar was hanging. And so many people that have been out in clubland probably saw it, Jimmy Page's guitar, which now would probably be worth $10 million.
Wow.
If it rose, if it came, probably more now. There's auctions now that prove that could have been more. So then 2014-15, Bleem had broken the headstock. I asked him not to talk about it, but the headstock was broken. We glued it back together. And at midnight, I'm leaving the store and I see it on the bench drying. And I take a black light, because car guys can take a black light and portable black lights, and you can wand it over the finish and you can see imperfections underneath the finish. So I did, and I saw the two holes. And I was just like, oh my God, it really is Jimmy Page's guitar, or might be.
So just there
This is weird.
in the shop by yourself at midnight
Yes.
with a black light. And then what's the next thing you
After
do?
10 years. So then after I poured a bucket of water on my head, not really, but we have a mutual friend, David, and I invited my friend David in. I'm like, David, come on in tomorrow. You got to see this. And so he came in after work, and we were looking for it in the black light. I couldn't see it for about 20 minutes. And I'm thinking like, well, maybe I didn't see it. And then all of a sudden, in the right light, twisting it just right, I saw it. Bleem owned it for 23 years and he never saw it. So it was hard to
Wow.
see. So at that time, the Rolling Stones were in town. And I was out hanging out with those guys. And I explained, I think I found Jimmy Page's guitar. And they're like, come on. Everybody thinks that. I'm like, no. Because a lot of them came up and Jimmy, like, this is your guitar, man. And Jimmy, had to give it back. So we finally found it. We saw the holes and we're like, oh my God, now what? The Stones are in town. I go to them. I explain, I think I know what it is. They contacted a guy, Perry Markaloff, who I knew already. And Perry Markaloff suggested that I look at the 12th fret, the pearl. And he said, you should just look at the pearl, see if you can see anything, because you can't see any wood. This is black lacquer. So you can't see wood grain. There's no way to identify it for sure as Jimmy's. But we did that. Now it's the internet age. Now there's all kinds of pictures of this 12th fret marker, and there is 3 little stars in the pearl. You can't mimic that. And this little burst in there. And that matched what we saw online, and then we knew for certain. And I called Perry up. I go, it's real. And he's, again, okay, Nate, but a lot of people say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
A little skeptical.
Yeah, it's not going to be. But for sure, it was. So he actually bought the same thing, a 1958, not a 1960, but the same guitar that was all clean, unbroken. The guitar had seen a lot of usage from Jimmy, and it was all roughed up. But we basically handed that guitar to Bleem, got Jimmy Page's guitar back, and it lived in my house for about 60 days until we brought it down to Texas to trade at a guitar show. And I met Perry down there, and he picked it up and he's just like, oh my God, Perry had been looking for this for Jimmy Page for all those years and was hell-bent on finding it. And I got a chance to hand it back to him. It's a great story. And later, Bleem had lost this part, which is the tremolo. It was on there, but you can take it off and put another stop piece on it. I won't go into it, but we found that, and that completed the package. Oddly, a little bit later, someone had returned the case to Perry too, so he had everything. Jimmy Page called me, thank me. He was very polite. He was a gentleman. He had it in his lap. He was like, listen to this. Turned it up and played a chord through an amplifier we had in. And he said, I'll never let it out of my hands again.